I'd like to apologize for the technical issue we had at the beginning. I mean, but alhamdulillah, we're able to resolve it. So, I mean, without taking our time, I would like to start proper by thanking everyone for joining this session. Today's session is going to be about entrepreneurship. Okay. Okay, so today's session, we actually be focused on entrepreneurship, as we all know that we have people who have graduated for quite a while, and people who are just graduated who are looking into doing businesses. So inshallah, we have brought in an alumni and somebody who is a big masquerade when it comes to entrepreneurship and I mean business. So without further ado, I'd like to call on Brother Maruf Aguro to unmute his mic and give us the opening dua.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In Alhamdulillah, we praise Almighty Allah for His mercies upon us. We give salutations to the noblest Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his household, his companions, and the generation of Muslims today of our compass. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim, ghayril maghdubi alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. Amin.
Amin. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah accept it. Thank you for that. So on to the next item on the agenda is citation. Is taking a citation of our speaker for today, and to do us that honors is no other person than the former mayor of MSSN LASUMEGA, in person of Sister Bilkis Aregbeshola. Can you unmute your mic, please? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It is my pleasure to have the citation of our noble speaker for today, the person of Brother Ayodeji Balogun. Ayodeji Balogun is a Nigerian entrepreneur, commodity trader, and CEO Afex, Nigeria's first private sector commodities exchange and tech-enabled agriculture company. He is a member board of trustees and serves on the board of Capital Market Development Fund. Balogun was born in Ijebu-Ode, Ogun State, Nigeria. He holds a diploma in heavy equipment engineering from Penn Foster University, Skirting, and B.Engine in mechanical engineering from the Lagos State University. He furthered his education at Lagos Business School, where he earned an MBA and ISC Business School, Spain. Balogun began his career as an analyst with Unilever Nigeria PLC, and later became an associate at Dairy Partners, where he contributed to the development of Nigeria's agriculture transformation plan in 2011. He was the regional director, Africa Exchange Holdings for West Africa, and then became the country manager for Afex Commodities. Afex Commodities Exchange Limited, that's Afex, in July 2014. He was appointed CEO of Afex in December 2019. But the Balogun is married to Oluwakemi Balogun, a medical doctor, and together they have 2 children. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for that citation of our guest speaker. So we go to the proper to the lecture proper, and permit me to welcome to the virtual lectern his humble self and a serial entrepreneur, no other person than Mr. Ayodeji Balogun. Drum rolls, please. Kindly unmute your mic.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Please permit me to share my slides. While doing that, I'll please ask. So I'm offside. I'm a farmer commodity trader by profession. So typically, half of my work takes me out of the city. And this is one of those weekends. So I may not have the best internet, just in case we have a snag along the line. Please permit me. It's part of our work to help Africa feed itself, that takes us out of the city. So what we're going to be, I know we have a session to talk about strategy, but I wanted to do make it a bit more robust. So one of the very famous quotes by one of the management scholars that I follow, and he says, execution will eat strategy for breakfast every day. So rather than only talk about strategy, I'm trying to talk and touch on what it takes to launch and scale a successful business. And strategy is one element, but I'm also touching on a few other levers that we could use for this. Housekeeping, we're starting around 4:20. What's the plan? When should I aim to end the session? I know it was a 1 hour session, but we're starting 20 minutes. So if I could be guided on that, I can manage time much better.
Yeah, thank you. So you have 40 minutes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
May Allah make it easy. It's always great to get back to speak with fellow alumni of last week campus. Ekpe campus was where it all started. And alhamdulillah for how far we've done. But I think, just to frame things, and I'd like to throw these questions out there for us to review. So if you have answers, I'm not sure if people can talk, or we will have it on the chat session. First, what comes first, a great idea or a great team? So if you could put it in the chat box, I would love to hear a few remarks. What do you think comes first, the great idea or the great team? Okay, so I've seen most of the answers I've seen on the board is a great idea. I beg to differ, a great team first. So the most important thing and the first element of starting a business is who. Most often you have great, and it's, there are a number of books that have proved this over time to say, even the best businesses will always change over time. And in fact, the capacity of a business not to change is probably one of the reasons why they fail. So if you look at an organization like, look at the history of computer making, just trying to use something that we're all familiar with. And then you look at the first products that came out of Apple, or the first product, Samsung as an organization, for instance, never started from electronics or from mobile phones. So sometimes the most important thing is having the right team component. You will typically have a notch when you're starting a business, but it's not about how great that idea is. It's more important you have a team complement that can get things done and continue to generate ideas, because your first idea, almost all the time, 95 out of 100 times, your first idea will not be the main idea that gets its initial success. So that's one. So the team over the idea. And one famous thing that you will hear often in the investment space is that the investors early stage investors will say, we will back an A team with a B idea over a B team with an A idea. So it is likely that an A team with a B idea will raise money faster than a team with a B team and an A idea. Because even if you have the best of idea, if you don't have the capacity to execute, then the idea wouldn't move you far. Now, the next question is, so I'll get into the 7 essential keys. That will take a bit of a time, so I'll go through it rather than ask. The third is how difficult, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being easy, 5 being difficult. How difficult is it to, how difficult is it to shape your strategy, to write the strategy for a business? 1 being extremely easy and 5 being extremely difficult. And say this from your experience starting a business, trying to create a strategy, launching a new business or a product, or even working within an existing organization. So on a scale of 1 to 5, if you can type in the chat box what you think your experience has been. Is it 1, extremely easy, you could sleep, wake up 7 a.m. and write out a strategy? 2, it's okay, but with the right help you can get to do. 4, it's easy, but it's difficult, but you need to pay someone. 5, it is the hardest thing to do in business. On a scale of 1 to 5, I have only 1 response. I'd like to get 3 or 4. So strategy is easy, and strategy is simple. And I'll get into a number of different tools, and I'll probably share a slide giving a few additional tools. But if you can answer, why am I doing this? You're very close to getting to the strategy. So some of these ideas are what we're going to be running through in the presentation. And I just wanted to give us a bit of a preview into the presentation. So the first thing is, great business ideas don't happen without great people. The most important part of you starting any business are the great people. It is extremely important that you have the right team. And this sometimes means just us, right? A lot of us are in that entrepreneurial mode, that startup mode, where we are the only founder, but also the only staff of the organization. How you take the business, how you show up every day, how much, and it doesn't matter how many hours you commit. If you commit 2 hours every day, show up at those 2 hours and be the best you can. It is always about the people. Now, most of the time when you have organizations and you start to grow into a number of people, you have to first and foremost be careful of who joins the team. Who is going to be your co-founder? Who are the first set of staff do you have? Who is going to market and do business development and market development? And how do they align with your core values, which we're going to get to very soon. The second is, when you then have a team, we find situations where the person is the right person, but then there's a mismatch between the skills they have and the core they do, the work they do. So you could either upskill them in this new business line, or you move them from that skill into another skill set. An example is, we're seeing a wave of 5G coming into the telecoms markets, and new organizations will start bringing that. If you have a team that most of their capacity is around radio or 4Gs, so how can you start to upskill them, anticipating that business line? And if not, they can't be upskilled, which is not typically the case. What then do you have to do? The second is where you then have a cultural fit, where this staff or this person, or you've called a brother or sister to come and join in the organization, and they're not delivering upon the expectation, or they don't have this kind of alignment with what you think you need to succeed. Then you have to be able to make the call and then say, thank you, Salam Alaikum, brother. Thank you for your help. It's time we go different ways, because here is what I want to achieve, and this is the path I want to get there. And it doesn't seem like we have an alignment on the process. Being able to make this call as leaders, as at when due, is one of the extremely important. In fact, it's the foundation of whether I would have a great company or otherwise. So people, people, people. So I want to talk about 7 characteristics of great leadership. After having the right team, the next part of this is then, how do we show up as leaders for them? How can we provide the right guidance and the right leadership? So here are 7 different ways of, how you can sort of group leadership. So leadership core, the essential elements of good leadership, if you want to say, in a business context. And management schools believe that you must have 2 to 3 of these to be able to succeed as a business leader. Now, when you have 2 to 3, as the business grows, you need to then bring in a few people to also join you that have complementary skills. So one is authenticity. How can you stay true to your purpose? We all know that even as Muslims, this is a core requirement for us, that we have to be able to stay true to that thing we believe. We can't be doing a business that goes this way and then our personality is this way, right? You know, selling a business that you don't believe in or doesn't resonate with what you do. That's one of the very core important parts of being a leader. A leader should be authentic and authentic to that aspirational self that he wants to be. Second is being decisive. And this is extremely important because very often, especially in the early stage of a business, you would have many options and then you wouldn't have enough data to be able to make the best decision from a very logical standpoint. So that capacity to be able to say, hey, from what we know today, let's make this call, let's decide and move forward with it with the best of the knowledge we know today. If we have additional information, we'll update and make progress. So being decisive is a very critical part of being a good leader, particularly in the business context. The next is people skills. And some people say I don't have people skills. There's no leader that is excused from having people skills. It's one of the things that for me, I think it's a must to have, but it's also one of the most difficult. Whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or an ambivert, you have to be able to manage your people, exude positive energy, right? So you don't want to come into an organization and you work, and then when you get to office in the morning, your boss is feeling cranky, doesn't look motivated, is complaining about every day, or is unnecessarily picking on you, or just not the kind of person that you want to be around. We have to build businesses that feel like family, that feel like people feel like they're part of a brotherhood, and then they're part of doing and achieving something great together. So that's, in my view, one of the must-have characteristics that you must have to be able to be successful in business. The fourth is focus. So a number of us don't stay focused enough on one thing. You're jack of all trades, as we typically say. You jump from one business idea to the next business idea. Today, it is multi-level marketing. Next tomorrow, it is IT. The day after, it is networking. The week after, you are the MC, the commercial MC for different programs. So how can you stay focused and be the best in one or two things at the same time? And then stay with it for a long time, because success comes with time. And then resilience and perseverance is one of the extremely important skills that you must have when doing business, particularly in Africa. The fifth is a personal touch. That point where you have a leader, a business leader that's just well-rounded, very well connected, knows his team by name, shows up for their events, engages and connects with their family. Those are the kind of characteristics that make exceptionally great leaders, but exceptionally great companies as well. So people need to be working for you, not just because they want to earn a paycheck. There has to be a connection with them, with you, their vision, your vision. And then they must feel that I'm doing this because it does make sense for me to help my brother. The fifth is communication now. Some people are extremely excellent at this, and it is one of those things that could get you very far. In a famous example when you talk about communication is Barack Obama and being able to win the US election on the back of his outstanding speeches and his ability to move people en masse. Yes, we can, hope of audacity, and all of those brilliant messages. So as a leader, if you do have the communication skill, you can sell your vision to both your staff, your team, but also to the broader public. You can push people to action, and that is one of the very important parts. We don't all have this, but when you do have it and you have a few additional complementary capacity, you could actually achieve a lot. What we don't want is people that come, they're extremely effective communicators, they speak, but everything ends where they speak. There's no call to action, there's lack of execution, there is no follow through. So being a great speaker, a great communicator skill to have, but you must complement it with other skills as well. You know, the seventh one is be forward thinking. And sometimes you call this visioning. You know, just having the ability to think into the future, understand where the market trends are, and be able to position the organization to maximize its potential. Now, this is another extremely important skill to have for people. So that makes 7 different leadership skills that are important for business. We don't have to have all of the 7, but at the minimum, you need to have 2 to 3, and then you need to then build complementary team members that have the other skills that you don't have. Like we said, it is all about the people and the team. Now, vision is one of the extremely important part of that, you know, building a good business. And what is a vision? A vision is that big thing that you want to do. What's that big idea? When you think 5 years or you think 7 years or 10 years, what does success look like? How can you define what success look like? That is the point of visioning. And there's several visions that you can look at. But then, you know, for instance, for us at Afex, our vision is to be the reference point for commodities in Africa. When you're thinking commodities, whether you want to buy, you want to trade, you want to export, you want to import, you want to finance, you think Afex. And that's everything we want to do is get towards that. And in our mind, that's about a 7-8 year thing to achieve. It's big, and it's something that we are all sort of fall back on. Now, if you go back from your vision statement, if you see how you want to, you know, you then go into your core beliefs. You know, when you want to set the business, there are certain things that you have to fundamentally stand for and fundamentally believe in to say, look, these things it is who I am. It is also a big bet on what I think the future will look like. Then you get into the purpose, like, why are you doing this? Why is it what all this? If you're not going to be paid anything, why is it that you're doing what you're doing? Now, the more you can get clear in your core beliefs and your purpose, then it's easy to find your mission, right? And your mission is that thing that you want to do that helps you achieve your mission. So if you think your core beliefs and your purpose are today, and your vision is 7 or 8 years time, your mission is like your year 3 or year 4. That thing that if you're successful at achieving, your vision will fall in line, right? You know, sometimes the way to put that is to say your mission is that, you know, then your mission is a lot more tangible. So you have a sizable, measurable thing. So for us at Afex, for instance, while our vision is to be the reference point for commodities in Africa, which is very big and high up there, our mission is to help Africa feed itself. Helping Africa feed itself is quantifiable. You can measure it, you can count it, and it's easy to have a scope in mind. So, but then it also calls to action. When people read, I want to help Africa feed itself, it provokes a sense of urgency. It provokes a sense of now. That is what you must have in a vision, in a mission statement that makes sense. People need to then say, okay, if I don't achieve this, what happens, right? And that must have a consequence. So if we say Africa cannot feed itself now, then we understand and we can think of how much of a problem it can be on the continent. So that is what a good mission statement is. When your mission statement, in a world where your mission statement doesn't happen, the world cannot be the same. So that's how you then think. When you can tick that box, then you have a right mission statement. Now, why are this important? The vision, the mission, the purpose, and the core beliefs. More increasingly, particularly when you look at Gen Zs and millennials, they are interested in working for beyond just the paycheck. For them, just having a paycheck is just the beginning of that employment engagement. They are increasingly wanting to do something that is more interesting, more fulfilling, more rewarding, more impactful to the broader ecosystem. So when you have a business and you cannot say, this is the purpose, this is why we exist, this is how the world will be a better place by us doing what we do, you can't attract the best talents. But also, as Muslims, we are also vicegerents. Part of our role is to make the world a better place. So being able to connect your business into a purpose and a vision and a mission that makes the world truly a better place or helps humanity at large, is actually doing the act of good, what is doing good while doing well, doing something that is rewarding, fulfilling, but also still making a means of livelihoods doing so. So after you've shaped out your mission, your vision, right? There's also that factor of, is that all that is needed to be successful? And what's the gap between having the vision, the mission, and actually being able to get it done? And that's where you have strategy, right? But then also beyond strategy, there's also luck, right? If you've ever heard a quote, a product market fit. If you launch the same product in different times in a decade, you have a different level of probability to happen. So let's say somebody today, the advent of Uber and the e-commerce platforms, right? It didn't mean that they had, they had everything covered at the time they were launched. If you had set up Uber before Google Maps was fully established, for instance, or Google Maps reached a point of sophistication, how will Uber or Bolt have worked? It was impossible, right? And they didn't have to build their own map. Imagine how much work and how much investment Google made to make Google Map what it is today. And on the back that Google Map had already existed, somebody thought about creating Airbnb, somebody thought about creating Uber, somebody thought about creating all the other location-driven business models, right? E-commerce and delivery happens a lot better because there were addresses and locations. So somebody could go to anywhere he didn't know to once he had an address, right? And this is extremely important because this is outside the scope of who you are as an entrepreneur. So one of the things you have to do is to look for that luck factor, right? But for you to be able to capitalize on the luck factor, you have to be ready. You have to have invested in processes, in people, in products. It's only when you have a product that you can then maximize on that luck factor, right? If not, then it's just like it's going to happen and you're not going to be able to do anything with it. The graveyard, they say, is the biggest home of ideas. So many people come with great ideas, start businesses, but they all die with them or they never even start them, primarily because they've not been able to get things ready on the ground. So when the luck eventually happens, the luck goes back to place because they're not ready. So to be able to capitalize on luck, macro environment, opportunities that come our way, we must always get ourselves ready. And this takes discipline and hard work, not just a winning strategy. To achieve success in business, start by cultivating discipline. Discipline. The book, even, if you look at things, right, even though of all the recipes that you need to have, to be successful in setting up a great business or a great organization, one that you almost can never be successful at if you don't have is discipline. That ability to show up, be out there, and be on time, and hold yourself and your colleagues accountable. It's like disciplined people, disciplined thoughts, disciplined actions. How can you inculcate discipline in your people, right? Let everybody be disciplined and principled. How can you bring in discipline in your thought process? Be rigorous in your analysis, work on scientific facts, do multiple experiments, and then make decisions based on both data and intuition, right? Not only data and not only intuition, but a combination of data and intuition. So that discipline in the thought process ensures that you have the best product or you have a product market fit. The third is discipline in action, right? Which is called execution. You just have to get it done. You could have the best idea or the best product or the biggest solution. If you don't get it done, then you can't create value from it. So back into the work strategy. What is a strategy? Yes, a good strategy is simple. At the core of what strategy is that it is what are the choices I want to make. So imagine I find myself in LASU, right? In LASU Ojo campus. And my destination is Ekpe, right? And I need to get to Ekpe within the same day, right? There are a few options I have, quite a number of options I have. I could go via Yanapaja, connect to Ojota to Oshodi, and make my way. I could go towards, there are 3 to 4 different routes I could make. Now, depending on the time of the day, whether it's in the morning, a Saturday, a Sunday, a afternoon, or an evening, there's a route I take. Depending on how much I have, there's a choice of, do I want to go through public transport? Do I want to rent a car? Do I want to charter an Uber if it was possible? Or do I want to drive by myself and fill my tank, right? What is the mix of actions that I have chosen to make, and what are the mix that I've chosen not to take? I can't go through Yanapaja and also still pass through Mile 2. It's almost impossible. I have to pick one of the two. That is strategy. Strategy is that choices that we make and the choices we don't, right? And then the idea of strategy is that it helps us get to our destination with a competitive advantage. Meaning we get there faster, or we get there cheaper, or we get there better than any other person would have done because of the choices of things we choose to do and the ones that we choose not to. Very much often people confuse strategy with tactics, right? Which is what is planning. What is, that's not strategy. Strategy is big picture. It is simple. And then it says every day I wake up, if I have to go from Ojo to Ekpe, I will rent a car, fuel it, and then drive to Ekpe. Because I know that I don't have the cash to buy a car today, but I also know that I want to show up in Ekpe looking neat and not scruffy. So I don't want to use the public transport. And I don't have the cash to buy a whole new car. So I choose a strategy where my cash outlay is low, but I can still achieve getting to Ekpe, being neat and not scruffy. So those are the options that I have. Now, it then means that you're renting a car, you don't own the car. Those are other options that you would not enjoy. Now, one of the very good tests of strategy is that it must have consequences. So if you choose not to do it, there has to be consequences of not doing it. If there are no consequences, there's no strategy. So then when you're thinking about strategy, there are 3 steps to it. So the first step of the strategy is you have to first look inwards, right? Who am I? What do I have? What are my resource constraints? What are the things at my disposal that I can use to the delivery of this? That's the first part of strategy. Now, one of the frameworks we use there is SWOT. What's my strength, weakness, opportunity, threats, right? So when you list out all your strengths, all your weakness, all the opportunities around you, and all the threats, then your first step towards what your strategy is. Because it's like know thyself and then know the world, right? So you've looked inward and say, this is where I am today, right? The next part is to then look at it and say, what is my macro? What's my environment like? What is my industry? What is happening and shaping my industry? What does 5G mean for me in telecoms, right? What is the advent of Google, satellite and cabling and all of the incremental infrastructure around networks across Africa, right? And what does the new data centers that are coming into Nigeria, what does it mean to me in my space, right? And how competitive I am with that? So that's the second part of strategy. The first is to look at it to say, what do I have? I'm an engineer with this degree and this certification and these capabilities. And then I have this team of experts that I work with that can help me achieve X, Y, Z. That is looking inwards. That's the first element of strategy. The second part of strategy is then looking outwards to say, what is going on in my environment? What are people saying? What do we have to do? And what is out there? Then once we've done this, then you then look at it and say, how then do I leverage what I have to achieve and beat the next person, knowing what is out there in the environment. So what is my alternative choices? And what is my what are my competitive choices? And out of all these choices, you then pick a strategy to say, this is how I want to play. If I play with this, I will win. So a few questions to ask, in conducting an external assessment is, where does your business sit in the sector? What trends can you identify across your sector, which then shows you where the opportunities are? What are the potential threats to your growth? What are the limiting beliefs and limiting constraints that could limit how much you can grow? Where are the opportunities in the market? Where is the market inclining? And how can you then start to position yourself to take advantage of those opportunities? Let your thinking be guided by 3 principles. First is bet big. Sometimes setting up a business is very hard. It's better you actually focus on winning big, right? So that the reward is worth the effort. When you have small businesses that are very small in scope, then you still have to go through all the pains. You still have to deal with power, DEPA, company registration, taxing, all these problems. And then the win is just this small. So there is always that thing of think big, think of businesses that can scale, think of additional resources that can help you get there. And that is one of the things that you have to helps you build a great organization. Second is play defense as well as offense. And this means, like, if you think about football, no team goes to the match and only plays offensive and win. No team also goes to a match and plays completely defense and wins a game. You have to play both offensive and defensive. So you have to go in and set up your business with a way to say, look, we're going to be big and we're going to take over Africa and the rest of the world. But at the same time, while we're doing that, we have the reality of we have to find money to pay salary this month, right? And then not because of a big promised contract down the line, leave the opportunities of small earnings that you can have today and then meet your payroll. So how do you play defensive and offensive at the same time? And lastly is don't settle for big wins. When you achieve great success, think bigger. Always think bigger, bigger, bigger. Because when you stop growing, then you start dying. So this is another very important part, particularly for organizations that are now on the bigger side. So you cannot innovate without ideas. And I would like you to also help me with the chat box now. Who knows where the first ideas to build the Macintosh laptop came from? Which company had the first idea to build the Macintosh laptop? If you could write it on the chat box. Which company did Apple pick the idea to build the first personal computer from? Xerox. We know Xerox, the photocopying maker. Xerox was the first company to design the graphic user interface, the GUI. They were the first to design the multiple screen layers where you can zoom down one screen and open down one screen. So a lot of the things that led into the new era of computer making was led by Xerox. The team from Apple visited Xerox, saw what they had, were extremely impressed, took out some of the ideas, signed a contract, and then started building new products from it. You can imagine where Xerox today is versus where Apple is as a company, right? It doesn't mean that, so you could have great ideas, but organizations have to be able to have an innovative mindset and an innovative culture where you can open to ideas, find a small idea, and then build the capacity to take that small idea and build it into something very big. And this is an extremely important. Organizations that don't have this innovative culture or can't nurture good ideas into great businesses either fail, or when they don't fail, they never achieve greatness. Hard work is the secret to success. There's just no other way to get it done but to do it and to do it hard. You know, and it's that grind or repetitive of going through that hard working cycle, and that's where greatness comes. Some of the ideas in terms of how to keep the team being, you know, hardworking and focused. You know, one is to set deadlines and to stick them. So have a project plan, have milestones, have deliverables that are actionable and tied to, you know, owners, and then make sure they get done within the time deadline sets. Second is to have milestone management. You know, in our organization, we use what we call objective key results. So every quarter, there are certain objectives that we want to do as an organization, and there are certain 3 to 4 key results every staff must deliver on. And that is essentially the destiny of every staff. Everybody has to deliver, and then we track almost on a weekly and monthly basis where we are as an organization based on the big objective, but also the key results as defined. Keep it smart, so specific, methodical, and consistent, right? That's one of, we also have SMART. SMART is a bit more common. Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So whatever the framework you use, keep it real, keep it alive, check it periodically, and continuously update it. But be sincere and make sure that you're not just, you know, slacking or faffing around when it comes to these things. The last part of this is to empower your whole team. You cannot build a great organization by being a single genius. In fact, what people say is when you're the smartest guy in every room, you're probably in the wrong room. If you don't have subject matter experts that are better than you in their own field, then you have the wrong employees. You have to empower your whole team to achieve. Then when you empower them, when they achieve, you have to understand how to celebrate them and make them have that sense of we won. It cannot be about you. Most often, we build terrible organizations or make our organizations fail because it's always about us. We must always be the smart one, and we must always be the winner in every argument and in every idea. So how can we empower our team, you know, innovate them, empower them, and let them go create and build great organizations? The market is fast-paced and unforgiving. And countless enterprises fizzle out before they've achieved, before the first 5 years. So most SMEs fail within a 0 to 5 year time horizon. The question is, how can we build organizations that are built to last? How can we build organizations that can move from good to greatness? How can we build organizations that can outlive us as the founders? Thank you.
All right. Jazakumullah khairan. We say a very big thank you to you. I mean, this is short, is apt, but I mean, it's been quite expository. And I'm sure that everyone on the call have they've gained 1 or 2 things from this presentation. I mean, I'm sure people would have questions or clarifications whatsoever to ask. I mean, you can drop your questions in the chat box or just signify to ask your question. So please let's drop our questions or signify. I mean, one of the things I enjoyed about this was the icebreaker session where you had to ask between team and idea. I mean, majority of us went in the direction of idea, but you got us there when you said team, and 1 or 2 flashes came to my mind, and I remembered a field stuff that I myself and some other guys did, and I remember that yes, team is actually very, very key. I mean, in time when you're trying to create a business. So again, if you have questions, please drop. And okay, I have 1 question already. As an entrepreneur, please, what are the things that we must never do? As an entrepreneur, what are the things that we must never do? I think your mic is muted. Your mic is muted. Your mic is muted.
Thank you. Sure. So the first thing is not separating your post from your personal, from not separating your business post from your personal post, right? That's an absolute no-no. The minute you don't have a business account where all capital ALL revenue goes from and all cost comes out of, you're never going to be successful in that business. You're almost never going to be successful in that business. You have to separate your post from your business post. That's one. The second is this is a bit complicated. When you say don't do business with family, right? And it's not, the principle is not don't do business with family or don't do business with your brothers, right? The principle is that you are in this thing for a mission. You have a clearly articulated vision and mission, and then everybody's responsibilities is well defined. It's a milestone-based business approach. So there's you now get into the review meeting and somebody don't do their part, and then we are saying salam alaikum brother, salam alaikum brother. You're never going to get anything done in business, or if that's your approach. So if you're doing business, yes, do business with family, do business with your brothers, but keep that aside. When you get into the business world, hold yourself accountable, be disciplined, and if you're a wrong fit and you're not delivering on what needs to be done, get them out of the business way. Keep them as friends, but separate that from business. I think those are the two things that come to mind. There's so many other things, but I think it's, I call it common sense management.
All right, thank you for that. I'm sure the person who asked that question is satisfied with that response. Okay, another question I have here is, leadership comes with making decisions. What is the most difficult decision you have made as a leader, and when you make a bad decision, how do you rectify it?
So the first thing I say, and I typically say this, is that it's better to make a bad decision than to make no decisions. And I think I even made it in terms of when I was talking about the attributes of a leader. You have to be decisive, right? Now, naturally, sometimes you don't have full information. Sometimes you make a call, and you have more information after you have made that decision, and you can come back. Now, also the kind of decisions that you make, you have to also be careful, right? There are decisions that have far-reaching impact on the business profitability, or particularly on the people, your staff and your colleagues. The way you make those decisions, you have to be careful. For instance, somebody says there's a fraud, and then there are people involved, and people are saying different versions of the story, right? The first thing is that you must first step aside, cool down, get the facts, and then try to make it. Because when you don't get all the information before making a decision, you could punish the person and you could be speculating, right? And that could be very bad for the business environment. So you have to continue to recalibrate as a leader. Now, when you make bad decisions, it is easy to go back, and it's not easy, but go back and let your team, if not the whole organization, at least your management team that are part of the process, let them understand and say, bad call, let's reassess, and then let's take our learnings from this, right? It's like an after action review. And then you say, look, we make the bad call, we made the bad decision, let's look back again and let's take the learnings from this, and how can we go? How can we be better off from this? Wallahu alam.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we can take two more questions. I have a question here that says, at what point does one make the decision of switching from being an employee to an employer? At what point?
So there's no one right answer, because context matters, right? Some of the pointers you need to look at is, first is, there's no easier way to, I say if you're doing any business, you're going to pay school fees, right? So you're going to lose money. So my rule of thumb, and I learned this from my mom in business, is you have to go in, almost like a 30% rule, right? So if you have 1 million naira or 10 million naira to do a business, put in your first 3 million naira into it while you're working, start to ideate, start to learn find partners, find a co-founder, find, iterate it. You will learn a whole lot more. You probably will lose all of that first 30%, but you would have come out smarter, and then you get what you're doing. Now you get your second 30%, right? And then when you want to get in that second 30%, at least there are some hypotheses that you know that these hypotheses are null, hence will not work, right? You then have more informed position to start the business with. And then you can then go in at that point and then invest the second 30% of your capital. Now that then helps you to start the business, build the relationship, build the product, start to earn revenue. And then the last third part of that capital you bring in when you're ready to scale that business. In my view, ideally, you want to leave the paid employment to focus on this at that third level when you're bringing in that third level of capital, or at best at the second level, if you're absolutely sure of what you're doing, then you bring it at the second level when you're going to say, okay, I've made a few mistakes. Now it's time to go and start this. Let me pay my attention to it and make it work. And sometimes that's sort of like, that's one of the frameworks. But, and sometimes you have the intuition and the conviction that I do have a product market fit. This is the right time. I have the right team to deliver, and I know what to do. Then you could make the call, leave, take a full jump, and then, go build the business. But, so, depending on the context, you then have to pick which works best for you.
All right, thank you for that. And this one says, can this approach be applied to non-profit organizations such as LASUMEGA, putting in mind that it's a non-profit organization?
Yes, and if you look at some of the biggest foundations in the world use the same management principles. Milestone-based management, authentic leadership. So yes, absolutely. In fact, a lot of these management principles are the same principles that we'll see if we look at the stories of the prophets and the men around the prophets. You see they embody the same set of standards, in their own lifestyle and in building the Ummah.
All right, awesome. And okay, I think we've come to, I'll quickly squeeze this in. And someone says, between sole proprietorship and partnership, which would you encourage? I mean, this is the last question. I mean, just squeezing that in.
None of both. I prefer set up a limited liability company, let each of the shareholders or founders or co-founders earn their shares over time. Sole proprietorship, is very limiting in what you can do. Incorporated partnership can be very complex because sometimes you find you start a business and people want to go different directions, then it's extremely difficult to unwind. I think I'm not a lawyer, but the most is set up a limited company, have your shareholders agreements, and then clearly define what people have to do and how much shares they have to earn. So if they get it done, they get the shares. If they don't get it done, they don't get the shares.
All right. I mean, Jazakumullah khairan, you've really shed light on this topic and as well as the questions. I'm sure for any other question that we have here, we'll just we will forward them to you. I mean, I understand your busy schedule though. So we'll call on Malam Abdul-Rashid Abari to give us a vote of thanks.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We thank Almighty Allah for keeping us alive till this moment. Then we thank our lecturer on behalf of LASUMEGA and the entire member. We say a big Jazakumullah khairan to our facilitator. He has done a very good job to the topic given. And we pray Almighty Allah continue to prosper your business and as well as each and every one of us. Then also we thank every one of us for taking time out today to attend this session. I know it's not easy to come on a meeting on the Sunday afternoon. So we thank each and every one of you for taking time out to attend this meeting. We pray Almighty Allah reward you all and in abundance. Amen. Jazakumullah khairan to every one of us. Amen.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you for that. And next on the agenda is to take our closing dua, which will be done by the immediate pastor Amir of the Muslim Society of Nigeria, Ekpe campus. the person of Malam Sodiki, though. Can you unmute your mic? Okay, I think I'll call on Brother Saba to kindly do us the honors of taking that.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello,
please.
am I audible? Okay, we give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making this session a successful one, despite the little technical issues we had around 2 p.m. where we have to delay the session for like 10 minutes. Despite that, it has been very interesting. I was part, in fact, I have my notes beside me and I've jotted a lot. So, and I really appreciate our brother, yes, to see you, Ayodeji Balogun. I pray Almighty Master continue to guide him in his endeavors, to continue to make him successful. Being that status is not an easy 24-hour work. I really know that. So I pray Almighty should give him the energy, the wisdom, the intellect required to sustain the tempo and to keep moving forward. We are proud of you. LASUMEGA is proud of you. Lagos State University is proud of you. Nigeria is proud of you, and we pray you continue to grow in strength and strength. I mean, we also want to seize this opportunity to pray to all our members for LASUMEGA and both old and new. The new members that just joined us a few months ago. I will pray Almighty guide us right. Our members on campus that are still studying, we pray that Almighty make them successful as well. And
Thank you.
Sorry. So let me just, I think there was a network challenge. So we pray to Allah and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides every one of us, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His infinite mercy grant all our heart's desires. We also pray for LASUMEGA as an organization, as an association, that Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will continue to make LASUMEGA be a source of inspiration to our members and the younger ones that are also coming on board.
Amen.
Allahumma amin. Let's recite Surah Al-Fatah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in Ihdinas siratal mustaqim Siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, we'll try and see if we can get a copy of the slide so that we can share with everyone who needs it. All right, so Jazakumullah khairan to everyone. Thank you for joining this session. We say a big Jazakumullah khairan. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.